Morning, everybody. How we doing today? It's Friday. It's a Friday. Still not back to work yet. I've had a car issue. My car went in the shop on Monday, and this guy still hasn't got it back to me, which has been somewhat frustrating. So I did want to go check with a few bars this week up in Rochester. 20 miles that way. Which way? That way. But wasn't to be. I've had no vehicle all week. Hopefully he calls me today, but it's just part of life, It's been a tough time with my family. My stepson left home a few months ago on bad terms. He's struggling badly. He's not working. He didn't graduate high school, and he's got a very bad gaming addiction. And it's tough to get someone to see how much this behavior is crippling their life when something's so socially accepted. And it's such a marker of prestige. And there's so much achievement that's virtual accomplishment and very little real world accomplishment, trophy getting, antler building, as I've always said. A young buck needs to build antlers. You need experience. You need to build confidence from exerting effort and trying hard. And hard work is its own reward. It's a cliche, but it's true. And he spent his whole life never applying himself at anything, never deviating or trying other things, in spite of my best efforts. It's been very frustrating. And he came by last night, and you get to see how tough things are for him. He got fired from his job, and he wasn't really working. He's supposed to be catching up on the school he didn't finish. He's not really working on that. He's just playing video games 18 hours a day. And that's pretty much why he left. So there was no one telling him what he could do when. And his birth blood father is a gamer as well and an addict, and is completely enabling and supporting his addiction. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are gamers, and I don't have a problem with gaming. Me and my wife play, Mario once in a while on the Nintendo Switch. We just beat Mario for the third time. Gaming's okay. If you can keep a job and keep your life in balance and have other facets to yourself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's about having balance in life. And he just doesn't exhibit any other effort. And we feel good about the efforts we make in life, And he's just not built any rapport with himself of confidence building experience. He's not done nothing. And the things we have gotten him to try, he usually make everyone so miserable the whole time. It's just really frustrating. And even hanging out watching a movie, he'll just be miserable until he can go to his room and get his little fix. I don't know what to do. If I'm on, I don't know what to do. There's a chance he might want to come back here, and there's a lot of tension between me and my wife about it. There was a lot of tension when he was here. He's been gone over 2 months, and it's been a nice break because he carries his lack of success, lack of accomplishment and achievement. When he's not gaming, he's so filled with anxiety and depression and self-loathing, and he just cloaks everything with it and inhabits the space that we're all in with just this misery and resentment. And it's a tough environment. I don't know the way out of it, but again, it's just part of life. Car issues, kid issues, money issues. But thankfully for this channel, it's got some really great loyal followers who I really value and appreciate. Just deposited my Patreon money and some t-shirt money into my account, and it'll help me get through this month economically. Hopefully I can find some DJ work here in November. But everyone who's supported and helped out, a few people have sent money via PayPal. Thank you so much. Genuinely from the bottom of my heart, me and my wife both want to thank you. She just started a new job and then got let go right away because insurance wouldn't cover her because she's supposed to drive, but she got a DUI 2 years ago. And that DUI has been a real hurdle for her economically, and it's caused her a lot of issues. She's been sober now 8 months, thankfully, and that's been a wonderful blessing, And so super thankful for that. I love my wife dearly. She's a rock for me in a lot of ways. But, these kids things can be stressful for, her as a mom as well. it's tough watching her kid be where her kid is at. But anyway, just thank you to everyone for their support. Sometimes I just have a conversation with one of y'all. Y'all know who you are, and those conversations sometimes are just a great distraction to lift my spirits and remind me of other things and give me other focus. Or sometimes we even talk about life and family, and it's great to get some counsel and some just support. It's a very valuable thing. The next thing I want to talk to you about real quick, and I'm going to put some pictures up on the video when I'm done talking about it, is I'm making a set of what I call jazz legend trading cards. I got 40 of them designed so far, and I might end up making 300, 400, 500 of them by the time all is said and done. And it's meant to cover the golden era, the classic era of the jazz age. You know, so pre-1970, which is where my love and my passion for jazz really exists. We'll include a lot of the great swing era giants, and we're going to delve deeply into the 40s bebop, hard bop, and the cards will tell you what genres they played in, what region they were from, what instrument they played. You'll see some examples here, and so you'll be able to sort these cards eventually by instrument and see all the great trumpet players, sort them by city. So you can see all these guys came from Philly, all these guys came from Detroit. So it'll be a real educational tool. You'll be able to sort them by chronology, because on the card I'm putting their era of their career, not their life, but their career. They played from this time to that time. So you'll see when so-and-so shows up on the scene and who their influencers were and who influenced them. And if you take all the great tenor saxophonists and show when they all emerge on the scene, our chronology will unveil itself. Unfortunately, it's going to take 300, 400, or 500 cards to get to the point where I feel like we've really covered the depth that needs to be done. But they're great teaching tools. And part of what I'm asking y'all here is, aside from being trading cards, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on my Patreon for download. If you support the channel on Patreon, whatever donation you give, these cards will be there for you to download if you want. And I'll probably add so many per month till we get to the point where there's a nice little stack of them. And you can print them out. You can leave them on your computer. You can print them into full sheet pages if you want, and make them a binder. And even with something I thought, you guys have seen my binders where I have all my artists and my labels, and I flip through them, I printed them out. You can actually use these for that, and on the back of the sheet maybe print out the artist's discography and check off the albums you have, the ones you're looking for. You take that binder of printouts with you when you go to a record store. And like, oh, do I have this Milt Jackson? And sometimes you know right away you don't have it. But I find with shopping online, it muddies the water, because I might have bid on that a few times. Did I win that? In the flush and the raw and the when you're out there in record stores, you know if you've never seen something before. You know, pretty much. Even me with 14,000 records, I generally know when I've never seen that. But it's something that's kind of that you've been looking for a while, and you might have bid on it a few times online. It could be easier to be like, oh, did I get that one? I can't remember. I have a lot of Al Cohn on RCA. Did I get this one? So those printouts can be very invaluable, because they can prevent you from doing one of two things: leaving a record you didn't have at the store, which will kill you, especially if it's one, oh man, it was the last RCA I needed. I love my Al Cohn. Or conversely, it can keep you from buying a record that you already have, which is the lesser of those two evils in my camp. But there's been times I bought something online I already had, and I could have just walked 5 feet and seen I had it. So it's part of getting old, I think, but just part of having so many records, part of being a collector. So these are going to be aimed at the casual jazz collector. They're not going to be really aimed at the guy who's collecting records for their value and resale and their worth. This is going to be collecting. This is for the people who collect because they love jazz and want to know the history and know the characters and the people behind it. I see a lot of possible ways that these trading cards could be used. Put them up on the wall in your kids' room. Let them learn who these people are. I don't know. I'm actually asking for some of your guys' ideas. You'll see the cards here as I'll post them in the video. And what are your suggestions? What would you do with these if you had them? And how far should these sets go? And obviously you can add another set later down the road where you like an all-star session set or the throat grabber set, like my friend Bob Bowser was talking. There's a lot of different ways you can manifest this whole thing. So if you had these cards, how would you print them out? Would you print them out as wallet size, as 2 per page, 4 per page, 6 per page, whole sheet size? Myself, I think I'm going to print them on glossy paper, and I'm deciding what to put on the back. I'm thinking some kind of a discography with a little bit of a bio, but again, that's a lot of work. So I'm trying to gauge exactly how much interest people would have in these. I'm not selling them, but you do have to go to my Patreon and support the channel to get them. At least that's initially how I'm going to present them. And how many people would want a set of Jazz Legend trading cards? They also have a sequential number on the bottom, so you can just collect them and put them in that sequence. You know, just the number of random cards. I think sorting them by instrument would be really fun. Seeing all those trumpet players, all those bass players, even to put all the Detroit and Philly guys in different piles. You know, I used to love playing my baseball cards and my hockey cards as a kid. And like I said, it's in the bottom line, it's a teaching tool. And I think people who delve into these cards will get to know a lot of players and their instruments and what era they're from. And you'll learn who Johnny Hodges is from these cards. Just his timeline, what instrument he played and where he fits in. You know, I mean, there's so many cats that are on the periphery, and jazz beginners, novices, even kind of second tier, third tier jazz fans. There's a lot of players that are out there on the periphery. You've heard the name, but you don't really know what they play or what era they were from or what their lineage was. And these are meant to help fill in those gaps and to help you to the point where if you're in a record store and you see a record by Lem Winchester, you now know who that is. Like, oh, I got his card. He was a great vibraphonist. I should probably grab this record. It's not that expensive. And if you have the card with you or in the printout full page size in a binder, you'll look on the back and go, oh, that's his third record on New Jazz. Cool. So I could see different ways to use these, you know, but I'm also looking for some other ideas from people because A, I want to gauge how much interest there is before I put too much work into this, and B, there's probably another idea I haven't thought of or that someone else could come up with that'd be, oh, that's even better. Let's do it like that or add that to them. So I want to show you these test ones, and these might end up being the final product, but someone else might say, oh, you need to add this. So I'm looking for some feedback on these and some level of interest, just to gauge where we're at with stuff. So the cards I'm excited about. I've been working pretty hard on them. I can do about 10, 12, 15 of them a day, given my schedule right now. Each one takes about 15 minutes probably or so to lay it out and put it together. Maybe a little longer depending on what I have to do. Some of them I kind of know off the top of my head most of the information already. But another thing is they're going to show if a guy was born in Mississippi but moved to Detroit when he was 2, he's from Detroit. Okay, so I'm going to try to give you their region of origin within reason. If you were born somewhere but moved somewhere right away, we'll go with where you moved to, because that's what shaped you through high school and the musicians you saw and the bands that you were influenced by and where you eventually migrated to. See what I'm saying? So, and like I said, at this era, most jazz cats are from the Rust Belt or the Deep South. And you're getting some of the white cats, even mostly from the East Coast, Philadelphia, and then there's a few cats from Los Angeles. So it's going to be fun. I'm enjoying digging through it. I've got 40 of them done so far. And now let's move on to the next chapter of this episode. I want to talk about Oscar Peterson and Ray Brown. Oscar Peterson is one of the most talented players, genius virtuosos that jazz has ever seen. And his relationship with Norman Granz, he was the supporting band behind most sessions in the late 50s. Like he was the guy. And Ray Brown on the bass was right there as his cohort, and there was other members in that group that kind of came and went. I think Jimmy Raney was there for a while. I think Bernie Kessel at the very beginning was there for a while. I think even Johnny Smith was a guitarist for a while. Herb Ellis was a mainstay for a long time, and then they ended up going with a drummer for the trio with Ed Thigpen, And so that's just an incredible trio with Thigpen, Ray Brown, and Oscar Peterson. Ray Brown, he's such a beautiful, melodic, round-toned player. And he's actually one of the greatest bass players that most people don't talk about nearly enough. And for all the greatness of a great Scott LaFaro grew up listening to Ray Brown. Ray Brown is the institution of tone and playing that beautiful. He plays a lot of lead bass almost, where he's just really viscously flowing up and down the neck, doing things, punctuating, accenting. And the trio, of course, leaves you a lot of space as a bass player to be dynamic, to be fantastic, to be a virtuoso. Ray is an effortless player that just exerts a wonderful melodic phrasing and always gives you this great center that you can root into. And then you have the great Oscar Peterson, who next to Art Tatum is probably the most dynamic player the piano's ever seen. At slow ballad tempo, he's absolutely lyrical and a storyteller, and at up tempo, his virtuosity this side of Art Tatum is unrivaled. The things he can do with both hands, and he gets put in some settings at Verve that on the easy listening side of the Verve canon. And it's not easy listening in that 80s sense of, Kenny G and some of that schlocky stuff that came out in that era. But he's still playing like the Gershwin songbooks and all the great American songbooks and a lot of those Verve records. And it's great stuff, but a lot of the more heavier jazz fans kind of dismiss Oscar. And Oscar's as bad a player on his instrument as any player in the jazz kingdom. Oscar's a beast. And if you watch some of his live stuff from the 70s into the 80s, you can just see how much of a virtuoso he is when he's kind of let go and the framework to do what he's in the mood to do. There's few people like Oscar Peterson, and he really deserves a lot more recognition than he gets. And all that Verve stuff, having said that, is affordable and fantastic. In particular, I want to talk to you about We Get Requests. And this is with Ed Thigpen on the drums. I'm pretty sure. I'm actually pretty positive. This is Verve 8606, which probably puts it like 63. 62 maybe. I don't see a date here. But fantastic Peterson, not a gatefold, and it looks like Creed Taylor. I don't see his name or signature here. Actually, I think he had Oscar always had a different producer, even after Norman Granz left. I think my friend Jean-Michel told me that, and Jean-Michel knew Oscar pretty well, and he's taught me quite a bit about Oscar. Sent me videos to watch that just jaw dropped. I was like, oh my gosh, he's just an incredible player. Take my word for it, Oscar Peterson's a bad boy, and even in any setting, even if he's playing he's going to always add some flair and color and character that's just dynamic and spectacular, and it's across the entire piano. Some guys excel with one hand or the other, or in one range. They seem to have a real comfort level. Oscar can really tinkle with any of the levels on the piano. Pretty incredible stuff, and a pretty interesting person as well. He certainly had an ego, but that kind of brilliance rarely doesn't come with some ego, like a Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith and Oscar Peterson, I think, from my perception, share some personality traits. The kind of person that will refer to themselves in third person, the kind of person who walks into any setting with a degree of confidence that crosses into cockiness. But when you're that good, you can be Michael Jordan. You can have that kind of ascendancy and condescendence when you have the wings to fly. And Peterson, Jimmy Smith, and Michael Jordan certainly all have that ability to elevate above the competition and just to be the best. Oscar's a real revelation, and he's one of those guys that you can get his stuff really affordably. And you can go into an average record store and look for Oscar Peterson, and any of that Verve stuff, it's all of value. And I find some of his mid-60s, early 60s stuff is just fantastic. And again, so many of those great Sonny Stitt records and all those great blowers on the horn that are playing for Norman Granz in the late 50s. Oscar's backing up a lot of that session with his trios. So Oscar deserves a lot of love and recognition. And this record in particular, I found Ray Brown just to be so fantastic. And I'm going to try to up him a little bit here. Pull down the piano. He does a lot of Scott LaFaro type stuff where he's just improvising and throwing out these great lines and punctuating and giving you these accents and dynamics. You know, dynamics are so important in jazz. Here comes a nice passageway where you can hear some of what he's about. Soft opening, and then here comes the drums of Thigpen, and then Ray. It's dynamically interesting. Niels Peterson from Denmark, if I recall. I feel borrows a lot from Ray Brown as well. To me, all those that great next generation of bass players, you know, Isabel Crosby, Peterson, the aforementioned Scott LaFaro. These guys are very impacted by a guy like Ray Brown. You know, Pettiford, of course, was a great player before that, but Ray Brown kind of brings that next level of virtuosity and tonality. You know, that tonality is a big development in the jazz sound, and Ray brings a lot of that mid-range on the bass, and even some of the high-end stuff that will actually cut through in the mix very succinctly and cleanly. The low-end stuff sometimes becomes tougher to differentiate between tonalities, and Ray brings a lot of that middle punctuation to the picture, and I think a lot of the young kids come up and emulate Ray Brown. And Ray was a brilliant player, a brilliant person, a supporter of many jazz personalities throughout his life. My friend Jean-Michel also knew Ray Brown very well, and they were best friends pretty much. And I believe it was Ray Brown who called him Beethoven, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been Sweets Edison, but Jean-Michel knew a lot of these guys. And we talk a lot about their personalities and their characters and who they were. And it's very enriching to hear these stories and to find out sometimes who they were and what their personalities were, and how often I'm kind of perceiving them through photographs and my information on them and how they play fairly closely most often. You know, but listen to Ray. Just beautiful. And then Oscar's doing his thing on top. So don't ignore Ray Brown. Don't ignore Oscar Peterson. Their work together with whoever's that third member, Herb Ellis is one of the main guys. That stuff's all of value, and you should seek it out and pay that $7 for it, because you will love it and you won't tire of it. It's not something you're going to be like, oh, I don't need this anymore. The next record I want to talk to you about real quick. It's already a groove. It's already a groove. Pre-Jazz Messenger. You know, Blakey's kind of a young up-and-comer. He's been playing with different groups, doing some backing playing for guys like Monk. He, of course, had his big break with the fantastic singer Billy Eckstein. He played in that group for a while. And a lot of the talent in that group coalesces into the next movement in jazz. Bebop and post-bop into hard bop. A lot of that talent comes from Eckstein's circle. Blakey's a genius. He's a hard-driving, emotive player on the drums. And he goes to Blue Note, creates the Jazz Messengers, and one of the great legacies in jazz, as we all know. And those early Columbia works in 55, 56 are also very much of note. But there's a record he does here in 54 for Emersy on 10-inch. That's fantastic and a great stepping stone. And because it's on Emersy out of Chicago and not on Blue Note, you can find this for under 50 bucks. If this was on Blue Note, this would cost you $500. This is equal to that stuff. The lineup is insane. It's got the great Joe Gordon on trumpet, and Joe Gordon is one of the great trumpet players of the era. He has a great record on Emersy as well on a 10-inch. He's also part of that great West Coast scene. Shelly Man at the Black Hawk. He makes a nice little record at Contemporary as well, does Joe Gordon. Gigi Grice is playing the alto sax on this, and Grice is another great component of the post-bop movement, a great composer and arranger, and he did a lot of charts for a lot of people. Grice is pretty highly regarded, and Walter Bishop, Bernard Griggs rounded the bass and the piano, along with Blakey on the drums. Just a propulse session that is a harbinger of the hard bop that's dawning, and really, along with Clifford Brown, Max Roach, which this is synonymous with. Max Roach, Clifford Brown is happening at 54, 55, and here we have Blakey with Joe Gordon, and Gordon's a great player, and so Blakey and Joe Gordon are doing kind of the Brown Roach thing, and it's really a fantastic session. The tempos, you can see they're just driving. Bit more mid-tempo there. It's kind of insane, the collector market, how people value things and what they think is of worth, and how much it's just governed by coolness and what can I show people. It's gotten really out of hand. This is a great piece. It's not just historically important, it's got musical value. These guys are playing, and it's a real early hard bops piece set. You know what I mean? It's one of those real shapers of the hard bop sound. And the last record I want to dive in today is this Lee Morgan record. I listened to this record yesterday, and I was like, it's just such a cool example of the Blue Note sound. 57. It starts off with the bowing of Paul Chambers. Urban, chaotic, urban density, that urban city lights feel. And then it breaks into the sounds of this record. And there's a few people on this record that aren't your typical Blue Note fare. Ray Bryant's on the piano, who's more of a rhythm and blues guy on some level, but he actually plays on a lot of great hard bop records, some for Blue Note, some in other places, Prestige mostly. Ray Bryant's a great player, and another one of those guys that's kind of under the radar. And one of those guys, the trading cards, I'm hoping will help bring more light to, if we get that far with that concept. But the real surprise here is George Coleman. He's a fantastic tenor player, ends up with Miles in early 60s, and it's not a very long partnership. Coleman's a guy that's kind of happy to be in the shadows. He's a fantastic player, but he doesn't get a record as a leader until the mid to late 70s. He's just fine being kind of in the background, and you do get paid more for making records as a leader. But Coleman never really pushed for that too hard, it would seem. Certainly had the skill set to be it. But so you have Lee Morgan along with the fantastic George Coleman exchanging ideas and emotions with Ray Bryant, who's got kind of a cool calm to him. And then the bass player and drummer are Art Taylor, who's on a ton of records in this period, and of course Chambers on the bass, who starts off bowing it, which Chambers like to do quite a lot. There's Lee Morgan. Morgan likes to play in a lot of different ranges. He's pretty comfortable in most of them, and he's truly one of the greats that's possibly even greater than we realize. Like, Morgan's a bad boy. Morgan does his thing. He's got kind of an attitude to him most of the time. It's a healthy attitude. It's what gives him his edge. But it's kind of a no-nonsense, don't F with me attitude that it's part of what endears me to Morgan the most, is just his bravura and his attitude and his lack of, I ain't in the mood for your BS. And there's personal aspects to that, but there's also a social ramification to that, how he sees his place in America and that dynamic. I find him one of the most socially charged players of the hard bop era. And that's why I love Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan and Sonny Clark, those two guys are going to chant down Babylon and bring down the walls of Jericho. For all y'all Bible people, there you go. Walls of Jericho are coming down. Why? Because Lee Morgan's outside. And he brought friends. He brought Sonny Clark and Art Blakey. You in trouble. If you a wall, you trembling in your boots, seeing those three cats outside. And it's the same principle. See what I'm saying? Change at the gates. The fed up experience of the black man in America is at the door. And it's saying, hey, We ain't gonna live this way no more. Let us in. We're coming in. And if you don't let us in, we're gonna blow the walls down. You dig? You feel what I'm saying? So here in America in the 20th century, we are replaying the same history that reads from the Bible 3,500 years ago as they went into Canaan. If you take away my freedom and oppress me, I will respond. As a people, we will respond. And we will not allow you to defeat us. You'll have to kill every one of us, which is really the only way you extricate a people. You assassinate them all. But you leave that bloodline alive, that thought, that idea persists. And the persistence of the Black experience in America, that determination, that's embodied in guys like Blakey, in guys like Sonny Clark, and guys like Lee Morgan. It's got a value, it's got a currency to it that I find electric. And I just can't get enough of it. So we're going to finish on that note, keep it under 30 minutes. Well, just over 30 minutes. Oscar, don't sleep on Oscar. Ray Brown, genius. That Blakey Emerson 10-inch, you should try to find it if you can. And City Lights, not the most typical blue note of Sessions, and yet when you're playing on a record with Morgan, he's going to pull out of you an aggression and a angst and a determination. And that's what I love about jazz, is how much leaders of Sessions, and sometimes I'm not even the guy who's leading, but there's always going to be a leader emotionally, spiritually, socially, and that guy can often pull a direction in a certain way. And what you get from an Oscar Peterson is never going to be the same as what you get from a Lee Morgan. What you get from a Hank Mobley is never going to be the same as what you get from a John Coltrane, because they're pulling the musicians in that session with them. And that's one of the powers of jazz, is its ability to graft itself and mold itself into what's happening right now today in this environment. So that wraps up this record. I do want to call out my friend Bob Bowser. Enjoying chatting with you lately, my friend. This is Jack Montrose, not to be confused with J.R. Montrose, which he says he always gets confused. So I just wanted to recognize that. That's a fun little record by Jack Montrose, by the way, on the RCA label with a cute little cover. You gotta dig that. So last but not least, give me your feedback on the trading cards idea. And again, you don't have to print them out as trading cards. You can print them out as full page sheets. You can leave them on your desktop and play them as a, what's it called when you play slideshow? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Put them as a slideshow. Just have them playing on your desktop. They're meant to be educational and somewhat fun and a labor of love for me. And if you had access to these jazz trading cards or full sheet printouts or whatever, what would you do with them? Let me know, because this will determine how hard I work on this and where exactly I'd let it go and where I'd let it take us. Y'all be safe. Have a great day. If you haven't been to the Patreon page, please support us right now. It's a tough time for me and my family. We're getting through it. We're not complaining. We're not trying to whine, but we do appreciate the help right now. And keep in mind, if I ever have to go back to doing a 9-to-5 job, it will greatly diminish my time with y'all. So support through Patreon. If you want to go to PayPal and just shoot me a little something, that's always appreciated, but not. People ask to do it sometimes, so they don't want to be committed to a monthly Patreon pledge, which is $5. It's pretty minimal, or $10. But if you want to do a one-time donation, that's always appreciated as well. And of course, the merchandise shop, coffee cups, hoodies, t-shirts, lots of cool stuff, leggings for the gals, lots of fun stuff. Buy your gal a pair of Jazz Shepherd leggings for Christmas. Appreciate you all. Y'all be safe. Have a great day. And what do you want to do with those trading cards? Let me know. Peace.